As we are just over a week away from the Washington Nationals canning Mike Rizzo and Davey Martinez, do we have faith in the learners getting the next GM right?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And yes, I'm your host, Ryan Clary. Catch me on Twitter at RyanClary11. Later on in today's program, we have got the All-Star game tonight, and they have the ABS system in there. We'll talk a little about the All-Star game, but also about that ABS system. And in the second segment, did Mike Rizzo deserve to be fired? But also, do you have faith in the learners getting the next GM hire right? And of course, joining me today discussing that topic is my guy, Toby Alizer from 106.7 The Fan. He also has a Nats pod. What is it called again, Toby?
Bustin' Loose Baseball.
That's right. I don't know why. I just haven't heard of it, but that's all right. That's okay. But anyway, Toby, how are we doing?
Doing great, man. It's been a while since we've chatted on here.
I know it has been a while, and a lot has happened since. I believe maybe the last time you're on is a couple months ago, maybe sometime over the winter. Mike Rizzo is still the GM here in town. And Toby, we are just a week removed, or really about 9 days removed from Mike Rizzo being fired. So first and foremost, what was your reaction when the Nationals fired the president of baseball ops in town, Mike Rizzo?
Yeah, it was crazy to see them actually pull the trigger on something, because if there's anything that you've learned about the Nationals and the way that they've operated, even with Rizzo to an extent and Davey, there hasn't been any big definitive moves really since 2019-ish or times like that when the team was actually competing for winning seasons and stuff other than just last place in the division. There hasn't been any sort of, I'm making this move, this is how I'm going to go about business, and any sort of definitive move. They haven't made that. And so for them to not fire a bench coach, not fire a hitting coach, not fire a third base coach, none of that, their first move is bye-bye Davey and bye-bye Rizzo. It kind of caught you off guard. I don't necessarily disagree with the moves, but it kind of caught you off guard a week out from the draft, all those sorts of things. And for them to actually decisively make a move, it's kind of nice to see, but we'll see if they get it right with the next move.
Yeah, and I think all eyes are going to be on that next move, Toby. And obviously, you and I have talked a lot about this off the air because we work together on the same show, the Grant Danny Show on 106.7 The Fan. And yeah, I mean, I think that this move by the ownership was kind of them looking at Mike Rizzo, looking at Davey Martinez and saying, this team stinks right now. Like, we have a lot of issues right now. The learners, they are definitely part of that issue. And we've talked about that all day long. But they are doing nothing about it. And the learners were doing nothing about it. And it just kind of felt like that Spider-Man meme when they're both kind of webbing each other. And you're just kind of like, what do we do at this point? And the learners made the first move. And they said, you know what? Davey's gone, but also Mike Rizzo is gone. So kind of from that perspective there, Toby, like, do you think that this kind of shows that the Lerner family is kind of like checked in to this team and kind of saying like, hey, like, yeah, we may be not here all the time. We may be a little distant at times, but we're still here and we're still the people in charge. Like, do you kind of believe that this is kind of firmly setting themselves as two steps back in the door frame?
No. I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when you see them be more active and you see them actually make moves to improve the baseball team. So no, I mean, I would love for that to be the case. I would love for them to be engaged. I would love for them to spend money on the baseball team. Love for them to be active in free agency and give whoever the new GM is going to be, whether it's Mike DiBartolo or they go out and get somebody else. I would love for them to give the resources. But I think at some point they understood, and maybe it was just long enough where, I mean, the baffling part about all this, Ryan, is they had an easy exit ramp. They had an 11-game losing streak. They were a laughingstock of baseball, and they opted to keep everything in place. And then just a couple weeks later, getting swept by the Red Sox in the 4th of July series was somehow too much. Like, I don't know. It's just odd. It feels like it was something that eventually they just kind of woke up from a stupor and were like, I guess we should fire Rizzo and Davey. Like, I need to see them be actively engaged in the team before I believe that one move is suddenly going to trigger that they're suddenly back in and they're going to be active again. So no, I don't believe that this just suddenly means that the Lerners are back engaged with this team again.
I don't believe so either. And really, just what would show me with that at this point with the Lerners is that if they go into free agency this offseason, they're like, listen, if it's DeBartolo or whether it's a new GM coming in here into town, you're like, here's what you have to spend. And it's hopefully going to be a lot more than $15-20 million, whatever it's been the past few seasons. And they actually give a real budget out there. And you're going to be in play for guys like, let's say, I'm not looking at a free agent list, but let's say it was last offseason and you're in play for a Corbin Burns or you're in play for an Alex Bregman. That was not the case at all. And I don't really expect that to be the case at this point. But let's kind of take a step back here into the Mike Rizzo discussion, because I think you and I kind of shared the same sentiment overall on Mike Rizzo. I've talked a lot about it the past week. And right now with Mike Rizzo, I felt that he deserved to be fired. Like, again, you kind of talked about it, but that 11-game losing streak, that's kind of when it really opened my eyes a little bit. Like, that's kind of when I looked at the big picture of the Nationals and kind of where they were. And I was like, man, this team has a lot of holes to fill at this point. And as much as Davey was at blame for some of that, I also look at it, I'm like, well, who's shopping for the ingredients? And Mike Rizzo was in that case. Colin Poche DFA'd. Lucas Sims DFA'd. Jorge Lopez DFA'd. 3 main bullpen guys from this offseason. And by the way, Rizzo expected them to be good. And quite frankly, we expected them, or at least Poche and Sims, we thought they could be something. And they were nothing for this team. In fact, they hurt us overall. And without those 3 guys, you'd probably be in a much different situation today. So, long stretch out question here, Toby. Do you think Mike Rizzo deserved to be fired last week?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no way that you can look at this and say that he didn't deserve to be. I think you can make arguments for saying that he should have stayed even though he deserved it. But I think when you look at the points that you just made, I don't even blame him as much for those, because when you're given such a tight budget, the batting average on those isn't going to be very high. And you look at last year, and he was able to bring in a Derek Law who was effective. He was able to bring in a Dylan Floro who you were able to flip at the deadline. That was obviously a success, right? That's what we were looking for this offseason for Mike Rizzo. He didn't do that. But when you're also working with a very, very tight budget, that's going to happen when you're searching in the bargain bin. And that's what happened. You see other guys around the league be able to come in for, cheap contracts as well. So you've got to make the right decisions. He clearly didn't this offseason. So I don't even blame him as much for that, because when you're given that sort of a tight budget, you're not always going to hit home runs. That's fine. The issue for me is the draft and develop stuff, because the whole reason that the Nationals got to the point where they're at right now is because of their inability to draft and develop. Because I know we spend a lot of time talking about the Lerners not investing in this ball club. And look, that's a legitimate discussion. And whether they're spending in free agency, I think the bigger discussion now would be, are they spending behind the scenes enough? Are they giving whoever the general manager was, obviously it's been Mike Rizzo, were they giving him the necessary resources? I think that's a legitimate discussion we can have. But the reason that you got to the spot where this team was no longer competitive was there was no one in the farm system to step in. And when it was a guy like Carter Kieboom to take over for Anthony Rendon. Well, we saw how that went, right? You had guys that just, when you lose a Juan Soto, I'm glad that you got the guys you did in the trade, but who's going to fill his spot? When you lose a Trey Turner, who's filling his spot? When you lose a Max Scherzer, who's filling his spot? And we look around Major League Baseball, and guys all the time get traded to, from teams that they're not going to be able to sign them, and they trade them away, and they have someone ready that steps in and fills their spot. Maybe they're not going to be as good as the guy that they traded, but they at least have somebody. When you think about the Nationals, what's the last time they had someone where they traded a guy and they had a dude step in right away from their own system that they drafted, that they developed, and you're like, oh, okay, this is a fine replacement. They haven't had that in quite some time. And so that's on Mike Rizzo. There's no question about that. I think that Rizzo is a good big market general manager when he's given the resources to go out and sign free agents, to make trades. I think we all understand his track record there. But the issue is this team wasn't operating as a big market. And part of the reason for it, too, is because they're the team after that 2020 season, when they finally decided to sell off in 21, starting with Scherzer and Turner, they looked at it and said, well, the cupboard's kind of bare. And even that trade necessarily didn't work out the way that I think Mike Rizzo planned on it with Josiah Gray and Keibert Ruiz. So look, I don't think there's any way that you can look at it, even the biggest Mike Rizzo defender, and say definitively, oh, what the heck are they doing? There is definitely a reason to be fired. I think there's a discussion to have whether they should have made the move right before the draft, or should they have made it now, or maybe given him another shot. Maybe we can have that, but definitively, it was an absolute yes that he had every reason to be fired.
Yep, and it's totally agree with that, Toby. I think the timing of it was kind of like a week before you picked number 1 overall in the draft. Like, okay, like that's a little bit weird. But other than that, you look at the big picture, and as you were mentioning, development is on him. There was really no development. Like, yeah, you've gotten guys like James Wood. You can take credit for him. He was in he was in low A, Fredericksburg, when you got him. Like, sure, James Wood is an absolute success. Juan Soto is in there. But then you look at guys like Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg. While, yeah, they did develop him, or both those guys, they were generational number 1 overall picks that you and I could have taken. And quite frankly, the development just wasn't necessarily needed. Was there adjustments, things that had to happen? Of course there was, but still, the development was a huge issue with me for Rizzo over the years. I love Mike Rizzo. Tip the cap. He's going to be a legend here in DC. He should get like a Bobby Beathard type of treat, or maybe not that far. Bobby Beathard, longtime GM of the Redskins in town, won a couple Super Bowls, but still, Mike Rizzo, absolute legend in town. Put him in the DC Sports Hall of Fame. Some people who likely will not be in the DC Sports Hall of Fame, Toby, might be the Lerner family. So do you have faith in the Lerners getting the GM hire right? We'll talk about that next. You ever wish managing your money just felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat, and it's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And for someone like me, mid-20s, I need help saving money. And of course, with Monarch Money, having it all in one app, having juggled multiple apps prior to this, it finally can help me control my finances. I can see what I'm saving and also set some long-term goals for, again, retirement someday. I'm 25, but still 35 years down the road. It might seem like a while, but again, Monarch Money is helping me set my goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. We are back with Toby Alizer from 106.7 The Fan and Bustin' Loose Baseball. We just talked about Mike Rizzo, but the guy or girl who's going to replace Mike Rizzo is up to the Lerner family at this point. And Toby, I'll tell you right now, the faith I have in them getting this correct at this point is pretty minimal. I think right now with the track record of the Lerners over these past few seasons, let me take a step back actually. The 2010s, while it was still owned by the Lerner family, the principal owner was Ted Lerner. He was the guy who was the original one who made all the decisions, who opened up the checkbook. And now it's Mark Lerner, his son, who is the principal owner. And the family's just kind of like in an in-house fight of what they want to do. I do not have faith in this ownership group, in a new principal owner here in town with Mark Lerner. I do not have faith in them getting this decision correct. Does that mean that they will not be able to? No, they absolutely could hit a home run. They could put together some practice out there like we have seen the Commanders do, where they got, I'm blanking on it, Bob Myers from the Golden State Warriors and other people who have been around in professional sports to hire their GM, Adam Peters. The Lerners could do something similar to that. And in fact, I expect them to do something similar to that. But at this point in time, I do not have faith in them getting it right. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't. If it's just DeBartolo, then maybe I don't. But my big thing is I'll have to wait and see when the offseason, when they finally are going to have an opportunity to go hire somebody. So I wouldn't say that I have big time faith right now, but when you get to the offseason, I should see somebody from the Tampa Bay Rays rolling through town for an interview. I should see somebody from the Los Angeles Dodgers coming through for an interview. Take your pick of a good organization in baseball, and I should see them rolling through here with a chance to get the job instead of just saying, here you go, Mike DeBartolo. And not to say that he's not a worthy candidate. We'll see. And we're going to obviously get to see his work throughout the rest of the season. But I need to see some of the guys from around baseball, from some of the best organizations roll through here. And I think if you're smart, if you're this ownership group, you also need to understand that you might have to pay more for some of these guys. That definitely could be the case. But you might end up paying more for a general manager and saving money in the long run because they're able to make things work with less. That's something that organizations all around baseball are really, really good at. That's what the Rays have been good at for years, right? They've become the new kind of Moneyball Oakland A's that, kind of is romanticized where they're making more with less. That's something that if you're the learners, do you look at that and say, well, that's kind of attractive and instead of spending I don't know the numbers on the GM contract, but say instead of spending, $2 million, you used to go out and you have to spend $5 million on a guy, whatever the numbers may be. But I'll go do that because that saves me money in the long run because they're able to develop guys. They're able to find guys on the margin that we can plug him into this spot and he can be successful here. Maybe he's just platooning, whatever it may be. So I would love to see them go out and interview people. If they ultimately decide that it's DeBartolo after all of that, then okay, that's fine. I'll trust it, their judgment. But as of right now, who knows exactly what their plan is. If it's just we get down the line and they anoint DeBartolo, then no, I wouldn't say that I have a whole lot of faith that that's just definitively the right decision.
Yeah, I want to see them cast like a very wide net here. And I need them to go all in. I need them to talk to, as you mentioned, the Tampa Bay Rays. Like right now, you're run like a small market team. And so if you're going to run like a small market team, you're going to need a small market GM. And those are the analytical guys. These are these young guys who typically don't have GM jobs in their past, which I think is just fine. And these are kind of young analytic guys, assistant GMs in other organizations. You have to try to get that man. You have to try to get your Andrew Friedman the way that I believe I'm getting his name right from the Dodgers who started off the Rays. You need to figure out that. And the Nationals, this is kind of what you're doing here. And I'm not saying that they'll never spend again, but still, right now, with the way that this team is operating, you need to be able to develop and you need to be able to get young talent in this building and forget the fact that if you even do spend, you still have to do those things. And that's something that Mike Rizzo fortunately did in the 2010s. Like, again, Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburg, Rendon, Trey Turner, sign Max Scherzer, sign Daniel Murphy, Juan Soto, Victor Robles in 2019 was really good for this team. You have to be able to develop talent regardless. You just simply have to do that. And in order to do that, in my opinion, go get that young stud. Go find that young guy in the Guardians organization or the Reds or a small market team, someone who has been familiar with how that team runs and implement whatever they are doing into the Washington Nationals. That's a really key point for me at this point.
Yeah, and I think, too, give them the resources to do what they need. And it's not like I'm talking about to go sign free agents. So the example that I give is a guy that I really wanted in free agency this offseason with the understanding that they weren't going to spend money, so it was never going to happen. But I wanted Max Fried. I would have loved to have had Max Fried on this baseball team. You look at how good he's been. I think his AAV somewhere around $27, $28 million was never going to happen when you're spending basically 50 total in the offseason. So, it's a pipe dream. But you want to know how you could end up getting guys like Max Fried? Look down at Wake Forest at the pitching lab that they've built. Cost about $10, $11 million. That's $15 million less on a 1 year. You build it once and you don't have to, you continue maintaining it. Why don't you have that? Why don't you have a hitting lab? Why don't you have a bunch of people in R&D? Why don't you have all these analytics guys? Yes, it may cost some money up front, but if you're going to just skimp out on free agency and you're not going to spend as if this team is in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, last I checked, it still is. It's still in a major market. Then spend in other areas. Spend in ways so that you can say, I spent 25, 30 million in R&D, in the player development, all that stuff. And now it's up to the guys to figure out how to make sure that that all works and we're able to develop the guys to be big-time big leaguers. And you've seen teams be successful doing that. I don't love that approach because to me, I would love to combine that great development, all that extra stuff, all the resources they need to develop these guys with spending and free agency. But you might as well at least invest then in your player development because that's how you can continue to be good year after year after year. And hopefully, after you continue to do that, everything syncs up and you get a special team. And that's when you say, hey, pour that extra bit in there. That's when you go decide, you know what? That's when we need the Jason Worst to come over. That's when we need the Max Scherzers in here. That's when we need the Patrick Corbin signing, even though it didn't look great for a majority of it.
You don't win the World Series without him.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
That first year in 2019, you win a World Series with them. So that's what they need to do. And, I think Mike Rizzo was on our station 106.7 The Fan and basically said there's a blueprint for how this is done. And they developed some talent before. Now, some of it was they drafted Strasburg and Harper, and we talked about how much credit do you really get for developing those guys. But still, it was a perfect meld of talent at the right time. The contracts all synced up. Everything worked together. And then that's when you pour the talent in. The issue is they just haven't had that talent come through that was all syncing up the timelines correctly.
Yeah, and again, I remember back this time last year when they selected Seaver King, I was kind of like, okay, you cut a deal with someone, so obviously that gets you Luke Dickerson and gets you a couple other guys later on in the draft. But then my next question was, what are you going to do with Seaver King? Because again, this guy is a very raw prospect, and as we've seen over the first year of his pro ball career, hasn't been that great. It's been a slow struggle for him at this point. And so I think that just is one example. And again, we look back to, 2022 when you selected Elijah Green, 5th overall. That's kind of the track record here. You have these raw talent guys, then all of a sudden, Elijah Green's in rookie ball. Seaver King is kind of stuttering right now in Double-A. And, it's going to click for Seaver, I think, or at least I believe at this point. But still, those are just some cases where you're like, I don't have faith in this team and in this organization developing them and having them reach their tip-top potential. Because let's say if you do have Elijah Green reach his tip-top potential, that guy is going to be a star. If Seaver King, if he reaches his potential, that guy's going to be a great player. And unfortunately for the Nationals, I have not had any faith in them. And so, of course, when they made those two selections, I was kind of like, okay, they're very toolsy, but still, what are we going to do with them? So, fortunately for us, I think we'll be able to flip the page, and hopefully if it's DeBartolo or if it's someone else coming in the building, they'll be able to develop those guys. But Toby, the All-Star game is tonight, and the ABS system, something that you and I think, feel pretty strongly about, is making its Major League Baseball debut. We'll have that after this. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. And you're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Our guy, your guy, everybody's guy, James Wood, is making his All-Star game debut tonight. I've got an anytime home run for that 22-year-old superstar. He is going to be put on the map in front of the national stage on Channel 5 Fox tonight. I cannot wait to watch James Wood go home run. And of course, just makes the action a little bit more fun with our friends at FanDuel. But if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. We are an award-winning podcast for the best Nationals podcast given out by Toby Alizer, actually. So, Toby, forgot to mention that, but I really appreciate that.
Yeah, anything I can do to help you out, Ryan.
Of course. I do appreciate that, Toby. Again, what was it? Locked On Nationals. Okay. All right. The ABS system is making its debut tonight in the All-Star game. I'll be the first one to say it, Toby. I hate it. I do not want it. I do not want it. If you ask me for a real reason, I won't really give you a generic baseball one, besides the fact that I think it takes away from the art of framing. But also, I just like human beings making these decisions. You don't have to be perfect. And is it frustrating? Yes, it can be at times, but that is part of the game. whether you like it or not. There's better arguments to be had out there, but I also just don't like change. I like when CB Buckner is behind home plate giving strike calls to Jake Irvin when it's 3 inches off the plate. That's my guy. I don't like the ABS system. So we're going to see it tonight. Hopefully it doesn't mess up James Wood or any of our guys like Mackenzie Gore, but I don't like it, Toby. What do you think?
Are you somehow related to, are you Ryan Buckner? Or are you related to Angel Hernandez? Is that why you're saying this?
Well, Angel Hernandez no longer in the bigs, but he's my second favorite umpire behind CB Buckner. I love CB Buckner. I think was it Bryce Harper who hates his guts? Is that it?
There are plenty of guys who hate CB Buckner's guts, but
not me.
Yeah, you're the sole defender, so congratulations on that. I'm interested in how this is going to work. We saw it in spring training, obviously, and I think at some point this is going to take over and be a part of it. I don't mind the challenge system. I kind of like that. I don't know that I want to go fully automated because, look, frankly, I hate the idea of framing. I can't stand it. I hate how catchers are on a knee. I'm old school in that sense. I hate how they're not able to block stuff and everything. Just remember when you used to watch catching and it was just the subtle movements, and now you're starting with the glove on the ground and bringing up. I don't love all that stuff. It is what it is. That's modern catching, and those are the innovations they've made for pitch framing. What I'm interested in with this is, so the way that they come up with the strike zone is they take like a percentage of a guy's height, and the bottom of the zone and the top of the zone is whatever the percentage is. Here's what I think is interesting. Think about guys that have a big knee flex in their batting stance. Jeff Bagwell back in the day. Chris Bryant. Guys with that.
Juan Soto.
Yeah, Juan Soto.
Used to a little bit. But.
Does that mean that if I'm a pitcher and I throw it at the knees, that I don't get that strike because it's not technically the percentage of the height, but then I also have to now defend up at my neck because I'm squatted down so low as a hitter? Those are the things that I'm interested in. They have to make sure that it's done correctly. I don't necessarily have a massive issue with it, but to me, like a pitch that is at the letters is going to scrape the zone and they're going to say it's a strike, and that hasn't been a strike for the history of baseball. Or a pitch that is technically grazing the black, that's a fastball, that's a strike. One seam caught the edge. Like, I think there's got to be some understanding with these things. I don't think it's a horrible thing for baseball. If they go fully automated, I don't necessarily like it, but I think the challenge system does its job, where when you have the egregious one where it's, in the other batter's box and we're in a big spot here, it's 1-2 in the counts or 3-2, whatever it may be. And I'm up there at the plate and it's a big moment and the pitcher gets a call in the other batter's box. I can't have games getting screwed up by that late innings, late in games. But at the same point, I'm kind of with you. I enjoy the human element. It's fun to see guys arguing. There's one thing that I missed about Davey that we didn't see a whole lot of this year, but we've seen classic, was him arguing balls and strikes. It seems like, Aaron Boone, how are we going to deal without him getting ejected every other night arguing balls and strikes? But I think this is a decent system. I'm curious to see if they can fix some of the little tweaks that they need to make. But overall, I would say I'm generally a little bit in favor of it, but not as strong as a lot of people.
I'm like, yes, I think you do make a good argument because, number one, as you were mentioning there, like, some guys, their stances aren't necessarily like the exact same at this point. And like, how is the system going to adjust to guys when they're like an inch lower or inch higher, whatever it is? Like, that's a real thing here. And of course, that is at play here because, again, as you were mentioning, with the percentages of the zone and their height, whatever it is, I mean, the math at some point, it will be 100% correct someday. I just don't think we are there just yet. So I think we're kind of jumping the gun, and it's something that we're just going to have to accept because, I mean, and Toby, I don't know if you think this, but I think it's definitely going to be a thing someday. And you mentioned with the challenges also, I like the challenge system. Like, yeah, give guys a couple of challenges per game. Let's say it's 5 per team at this point. More than happy to do that. We can discuss that. I think it's entertaining. I believe we saw it. What was it? Was it in the Nationals prospects game at Nationals Park where they had the challenge system, or they had it at I feel like we saw it in person. Was it in spring training, Toby?
They didn't have it at Cacti, so I'm not sure that we saw it this year at spring training. I'm not sure where we would have seen it, but yeah, I mean, the Nationals have had it playing around different places in spring training. But I don't know if I've actually seen it in person.
Yeah, it may have been up in Jupiter in St. Louis a few years back. But anyway, Toby, it's always been fun catching up with you on the podcast. And of course, you guys can catch Toby on 106.7 The Fan weekly. I mean, he's on Beamich and Finley. He's filling in for Grant and Danny, does Bust and Loose baseball. He's at every Nationals game, at least at home. But Toby, we're in the dead period now. It's the All-Star break, and we flipped the page to the second half. So always appreciate the time, man.
Always great. Let's see Mackenzie Gore shove and James Wood go yard tonight.
That would be nice. That would be nice. And maybe no one will lose their job for the Nationals tonight if we're lucky. So, all right. That's Toby Alizer. I'm Ryan Clary. Enjoy the All-Star Game festivities tonight. James Wood, go Bomb.